Hello and welcome to today's Korea briefing. Today we'll be discussing what happened in Korea on Friday, March 21st, 2025.
Okay.
So we're diving deep into the major events that shaped yesterday in Korea, really getting you up to speed quickly.
Sounds good.
And as everyone knows, right now, Choi Sang-Mok is the acting president.
Right?
And that's because of all the accusations surrounding his alleged involvement in President Yoon Suk-yeol's declaration of martial law back on December 3rd.
Yeah, big issue.
Yeah, so that definitely adds another layer of complexity as we unpack all the big news stories from yesterday, spanning all sorts of sectors.
It's remarkable how a single day can reveal so much about a nation, you know?
Yeah,
With the acting president facing such serious accusations, it sets a pretty dramatic backdrop.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with the political and governmental developments. Those were definitely front and center.
Yeah.
A big story yesterday was the opposition parties taking aim at acting President Choi Sang-Mok.
Right, a coalition of opposition parties, including the Democratic Party, Justice Party, Progressive Party, Basic Income Party, and Social Democratic Party, all came together to submit an impeachment motion against him.
Wow.
And it's actually the 30th impeachment attempt under this administration, which is a pretty significant number.
Wow. 30.
30, yeah. It really shows a deep breakdown of political trust and highlights this growing trend of using impeachment as a political tool in South Korea, which, could really hinder their ability to govern effectively.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And the reasons for this impeachment push are pretty serious.
Mm.
Alleged complicity in that December 3rd martial law declaration, which they're calling a rebellion, and also claims that he failed to appoint Ma Eun-yuk as a constitutional court justice despite a court order.
Right.
And then there's his refusal to request a special prosecutor candidate.
All pretty significant.
Yeah, these accusations directly challenge core constitutional processes.
They do. What the opposition is basically saying is that the acting president hasn't just overstepped his boundaries. He's actively undermining essential legal and constitutional norms. These are some serious allegations,
Yeah.
with potentially huge consequences for the government's stability.
Yeah, definitely. And Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung didn't hold back. He really went after Choi Sang-mok,
Yeah, he did.
suggesting he's purposefully messing with the legal order and even hinted at him being involved in this rebellion.
Strong words.
Yeah, really strong statements that highlight just how divided things are politically.
Absolutely. That kind of rhetoric, it doesn't matter what the legal outcomes are, it really shapes public opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And to make matters even more intense, the Democratic Party also filed a complaint with the CIO, the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials.
Right.
And this is against Choi Sang-mok, bringing up the 2015 Mir Foundation scandal again. That goes back to when he was presidential secretary for economic and financial affairs under Park Geun-hye's administration.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, he was found not guilty in that case.
Yeah, but the fact that these allegations are resurfacing even after he was cleared, it suggests a strategy here.
Yeah.
A deliberate, multi-pronged effort to put as much pressure on the acting president as possible.
Right.
And the timing alongside the impeachment motion can't be a coincidence.
No, definitely not. So, predictably, the ruling People Power Party has come out swinging against this impeachment attempt, calling it national destruction, terrorism, and emotional retaliation.
Right.
They're also pointing out that former acting President Duck-Soo is expected back in his position soon, after that constitutional court ruling on his impeachment, which is scheduled for March 24th.
Yeah, the ruling party's response is definitely trying to frame the opposition's actions as purely political, like it's just revenge, especially with Duck-Soo likely to be reinstated. Their strategy is to portray this whole thing as a destabilizing power grab.
And it's interesting, there seems to be some internal disagreement within the Democratic Party about this impeachment push.
Oh, really?
Yeah, some members are apparently expressing concern about it being unreasonable, and even former Prime Minister Kim Boo-kyum came out and said it has little practical benefit and increases public anxiety.
Oh, interesting. That kind of dissent, it shows you how complex these political tactics are and the risks involved. Even within the opposition, there's an awareness that this could backfire, that the public might see it as them overreaching.
Right.
It's a real balancing act.
And speaking of balancing acts, we've got that constitutional court verdict on the impeachment of former acting President Duck-Soo coming up on March 24th.
Oh, yeah.
And that's going to have a huge impact on the political climate.
Absolutely. The maneuvering surrounding this decision is so strategic.
It really is.
The People Power Party, as you said, are welcoming the verdict.
Yeah.
They're probably anticipating Han's impeachment being rejected, But the Democratic Party, they're not happy. They see this as a delay tactic for President Yoon's impeachment trial.
It's like both sides are playing chess.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party might be thinking that if Han's impeachment is rejected, it actually makes their case for Yoon's impeachment stronger.
Oh, I see. They're hoping that by setting a higher bar for impeaching an acting president in Han's case, any future impeachment, especially one as politically charged as Yoon's, would need even stronger justification.
That is.
Interesting tactic.
And then there's the practical side of Han Duck-Soo potentially coming back. If he's reinstated, Choi Sang-Mok goes back to being finance minister.
Right.
So that creates this whole legal and political mess about impeaching him for things he did as acting president.
Absolutely. It would get very messy, legally and politically.
Yeah.
The opposition would have to argue that his actions as acting president are grounds for impeachment, even though he's back in a different cabinet role.
Yeah, it's a whole other layer of complexity.
It really is.
Okay, shifting gears a little bit. Still within the realm of government and legal affairs, there were some developments yesterday in the trial of that former defense security commander.
Yeah, the trial of the former defense security commander is still going on, and the accusations against him are serious, especially those relating to sending his subordinates to the National Election Commission. A pretty surprising statement from him came out yesterday.
Yeah, he reportedly said that his subordinates could figure out if what they were doing was legal just by watching TV,
Oh, wow.
which, kind of seems like he's brushing it off and raises some serious concerns about the chain of command and how legal obligations are understood within the military.
It really does. It suggests a potentially problematic lack of understanding and accountability.
Yeah, for sure. And on top of that, his defense team is arguing that his arrest was illegal.
Really?
Yeah, they say the CIO's arrest procedure was deceptive and that the transfer to military prosecutors wasn't done properly, so they're saying his detention is unlawful. But, of course, the military prosecution insists everything was by the book. So now we've got this big legal challenge to their case.
That's not unusual. These kinds of legal arguments about arrest procedures are pretty common in high-profile cases.
Right.
It's a crucial part of due process, and the military court's review of these procedures will be a big moment in this trial.
Absolutely. And while we're on the topic of legal challenges in law enforcement, there were also developments yesterday concerning those Presidential Security Service officials who were accused of obstructing the arrest of President Yoon Suk-yeol.
Yeah, the court rejected the detention warrants for Kim Song-hoon, the deputy chief of the Presidential Security Service, and Lee Kwang-woo, who's the head of the security headquarters.
Right.
And those were serious accusations, obstructing a legal process, possibly destroying Kim evidence.
Very serious. And the court's reasoning for rejecting these warrants, they said they were worried that detaining them at this point would unfairly restrict their right to defend themselves.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and they said there wasn't enough evidence to show that these officials would destroy evidence or try to run. So it shows you just how strict the criteria are for issuing detention warrants.
Yeah, it does. This decision really highlights the high legal bar that needs to be met before someone can be detained, especially when it comes to people in positions of authority.
Right.
The courts have to be absolutely sure that detention is necessary and that less restrictive measures won't work.
Okay, so, as you might expect, the legal team representing the Yoon administration was happy about this decision.
Yeah, I bet they were.
They also repeated their claim that the CIO and the National Police Agency's initial investigation was illegal.
Which shows how deeply political these legal proceedings are.
Absolutely. This constant back and forth between the administration and the investigators highlights the deep political divisions and how closely everyone's watching any legal action that involves the president and his inner circle.
For sure.
All right, let's shift gears and talk about international relations. Yesterday, there were some interesting developments involving the U.S.
Right.
First up, it seems the U.S. is going to be importing more eggs from South Korea.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a case of one country's domestic problems leading to changes in international trade.
Right. The U.S. has been hit hard by rising egg prices because of all those avian influenza outbreaks.
Right.
So U.S. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins announced that they'll be increasing egg imports, and they've identified South Korea, along with Turkey and Brazil, as key sources.
I see.
This is good news for U.S. consumers because it'll help bring prices down,
Yeah.
but it also highlights South Korea's growing role, even if it's unexpected, as a potential major supplier in global food markets.
Right.
which could have long-term implications for their agricultural sector.
Yeah, definitely. And this move by the U.S. is partly about addressing those rising food costs,
Mm.
and it's reportedly linked to an initiative from the Trump administration.
Hmm.
And the avian influenza outbreak in the U.S. has been devastating. Like 166 million laying hens have been culled since 2022.
That's a huge number, and it's had a dramatic impact on egg prices. Remember, last month, a dozen eggs cost almost $6, almost double what it was a year ago, and way up from that $1.59 price before the big outbreak in February 2021. The USDA, they're predicting another 41.1% increase this year.
Wow.
Yeah, and with Easter coming up, people are worried. It's crazy how unstable the price of a basic food item like eggs can be.
Yeah, it is. And it looks like South Korea has already started exporting eggs to the U.S.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a shipment of 20 tons from a farm in San went to Georgia recently, so it seems like they're responding quickly to the U.S.'s needs.
That's great to hear, but the exact timing and how much they'll import from South Korea is still being worked out.
Right.
This situation is going to keep changing as the U.S. tries to get those avian influenza outbreaks under control.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's worth noting that the USDA is investing a lot in research on avian influenza vaccines and treatments, like up to $100 million. So they're definitely looking for long-term solutions.
That's good. Okay, another development in U.S.-Korea relations. South Korean Trade Minister An Duk-yoon met with U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright in Washington, D.C. yesterday.
Right.
And the main topic was South Korea's concern about being put on that U.S. list of sensitive countries. Minister An made it clear to Secretary Wright how worried they are about the potential negative impact this could have on cooperation between the two countries.
And it sounds like they've agreed to work together to resolve this issue.
Yeah, they said they'll use established procedures and try to do it quickly.
That's good news.
But here's the thing. Even with this agreement, the delisting process might not be finished before that sensitive country designation takes effect on April 15th.
So they're on a bit of a tight timeline,
Yeah, they are.
which means South Korea will probably have to deal with this designation, at least for a little while. It really highlights the challenges of these international regulatory processes.
It does. And U.S. Deputy Chief of Mission to South Korea, Joseph Young, he clarified that putting South Korea on this list wasn't about their foreign or security policies.
Oh, okay.
He said it was because of some instances where sensitive information was handled carelessly.
I see. So they're trying to separate this trade issue from broader strategic alliances between the two countries, which are still very important.
Exactly. And during that meeting, they also talked about strengthening energy cooperation, which shows that the strategic partnership is still very much alive.
For sure.
They agreed to boost collaboration in areas like LNG, power grids, hydrogen energy, and SMRs, those small modular reactors.
Sounds like a pretty broad commitment.
Yeah, they're planning regular government-level policy dialogues and joint public-private energy forums.
This focus on energy cooperation shows how strategically important this sector is for both countries, even with those concerns about the sensitive country designation. They both see the benefits of working together in this area.